My boss, Harrison, stood in the middle of the office and dropped a cardboard box on my desk with a thud. "Pack your things, David. You're done here," he said, loud enough for the entire floor to hear. "I don't hire charity cases. I need winners, not a guy whose shoes cost less than my lunch." My son, Toby, was standing right there. It was bring your kid to work day. He started to cry, seeing his dad humiliated in front of everyone. Harrison just laughed and told the security guard, "Get the janitor and his kid out of my sight before they lower the property value." Before I tell you how I wiped that smirk off his face and showed him who really owned the ground he was standing on, do me a big favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell right now. You do not want to miss how an old lion handles a stray pup who thinks he can bite. Trust me, the ending of this story will change how you look at everyone you meet. I didn't move for a second. I just sat there looking at the box, then at the young man standing over me. Harrison is barely 30 years old. He wears suits that shine and watches that cost more than a small car, but he doesn't have a lick of respect in his heart. I looked at Toby. My poor boy was shaking. He's only 7, and to him, his dad was a hero. Now he was watching the hero get treated like a piece of trash. I stood up slowly. At 55, my bones creak a bit, but I still stand tall. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just looked Harrison right in the eye. He didn't like that. He wanted me to cry or get angry. He wanted to show. But I've learned in my 50-plus years that the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. "Is there something wrong with my work, Harrison?" I asked quietly. He laughed, a loud, ugly sound that made Toby flinch. "Your work? David, you're a dinosaur. You move slow, you talk slow, and frankly, you look out of place in a modern office. Look at you. That tie is 10 years old. This is a high-tech firm. We need young blood. We need energy. Not some old guy who probably still uses a paper map to find his way home." The people in the office, kids I had trained, people I had helped when they were stuck, they all looked away. They were scared. Harrison liked it that way. He ran the place like a playground bully. "I've been with this company since it was just 3 guys in a garage. Harrison," I said, "I helped build the foundation you're standing on. And you got paid for it, didn't you?" Harrison snapped. "Now the foundation is done, and we're building a skyscraper. There's no room for you in the new world. Now, get your kid in your box and get out." Security. The security guard, a man named Mike who I've known for years, walked over. He looked ashamed. He wouldn't look me in the eye. "Sorry, Dave," he whispered. I put my hand on Mike's shoulder. "It's okay, Mike. You have a job to do." I picked up a cardboard box. It didn't have much in it. A picture of my late wife, a mug Toby made for me in school, and a few pens. I took Toby's hand. His little palm was sweaty and cold. As we walked toward the elevator, Harrison shouted one last thing. "Hey, David, don't forget to check the trash on your way out. You might find a pair of shoes that actually fit a winner." The whole office stayed quiet, except for Harrison's loud, barking laugh. We got into the elevator. The doors closed, and for a moment, it was just me and my son. Toby looked up at me, his eyes red from crying. "Dad, are we going to be poor? Does that man hate us?" I knelt down, ignored the sting in my knees, and looked him right in the face. "Toby, look at me. That man has a lot of money, but he is a very poor man. He doesn't have respect, and he doesn't have friends. And as for being poor, don't you worry. We're going to be just fine. In fact, we're going to be better than fine." "But he took your job," Toby sobbed. "You think he took my job?" I said, a small smile finally reaching my face. "But he's about to find out that I've been holding the keys to his house the whole time." We walked out of the building. It was a hot afternoon, and the sun was hitting the glass of the big tower. Harrison Media. That was the name on the front. Harrison had put his name on it like he owned the sky. I looked up at the top floor. I led Toby to my truck. It's an old truck, a bit rusted around the edges, but the engine runs like a dream. Harrison always made fun of it. He called it a rolling heap of junk. But that truck had more character in its bumper than Harrison had in his whole body. I buckled Toby in and got behind the wheel. But I didn't start the engine right away. I pulled out a phone from my pocket. It wasn't the cheap phone I used at the office. This was a black, heavy phone with a special encrypted line. I hit a single button. "It's David," I said when the voice answered on the first ring. "Mr. Sterling," the voice sounded shocked. We haven't heard from you in months. How is the experiment going?" "The experiment is over," I said, my voice as cold as a winter morning. "Harrison just showed his true colors. He fired me in front of my son. He called me a charity case." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear the person shaking. He did what? Does he have any idea who you are?" "No," I said. "He thinks I'm a nobody. He thinks I'm a dinosaur. He told me the company has no room for old blood. So, let's show him what the old blood can do. I want you to start the blackout protocol." "Sir, you want to pull the funding?" "I want everything," I said. "I want his credit lines cut by 5 o'clock. I want the board of directors in an emergency meeting at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And call the owner of the building. Tell him I'm buying the title to the land and the tower. I want to be Harrison's landlord before the sun goes down. It will be done, Mr. Sterling." "Anything else?" I looked at Toby, who was watching me with big eyes. "Yes. Call my tailor. I need a suit delivered to the hotel. A real suit. It's time to stop playing dress up as a manager and start acting like the owner." I hung up the phone. Toby looked at me. "Who are you talking to, Dad?" "An old friend, Toby. An old friend who is going to help me teach a lesson." I started the truck. As we drove away, I saw Harrison standing on the balcony of the office, holding a drink and looking out at the city like he owned it. He didn't see me. He didn't care about the old man in the rusty truck. He thought I was gone. He thought he had won. But I've lived 55 years, and if there's one thing I know, it's this: the bigger the ego, the harder the fall. And Harrison was standing on the edge of a very, very deep hole. We went to a small diner and had the biggest burgers they had. I let Toby have a double milkshake. I wanted him to forget the crying and the shouting. I wanted him to see that his dad wasn't scared. "Grandpa always said that you should never judge a book by its cover, didn't he?" I asked him. Toby nodded, his mouth full of fries. "Well," I said, "Harrison only looked at the cover. He never bothered to read the story. And tomorrow, he's going to find out how the last chapter ends." That night, while Toby was sleeping in the hotel bed, I sat by the window. My phone kept buzzing. Harrison's personal bank accounts. Frozen. Harrison's company credit. Suspended. Building title. Transferred to Sterling Holdings. I watched the city lights. I remembered when I started this company 30 years ago. I had worked so hard, and I had stayed humble. I had stepped down and let younger people run the day-to-day stuff because I wanted to enjoy my life. I had taken that manager job under a fake name just to see how the new guys were doing. I wanted to see if they were taking care of the people. Harrison didn't just fail the test. He spat on it. He didn't know that the charity case he fired was the man who signed his paychecks. He didn't know that the cheap shoes he laughed at were worn by the man who owned the very floor he walked on. I looked at my watch. It was midnight. In 8 hours, the world was going to change for Harrison, and I was going to be right there to see his face when it happened. The suspense was sitting in my chest like a heavy weight, but it was a good weight. It was the feeling of a plan coming together. Harrison thought he was playing a game of checkers, but I had been playing chess for a long, long time. I closed my eyes and smiled. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day at the office. I didn't sleep much that night. I didn't need to. The adrenaline of an old lion getting ready for a hunt was keeping me wide awake. I spent the early morning hours watching the sun crawl up over the city buildings. Somewhere out there, Harrison was probably waking up in his silk sheets, thinking he was the king of the world. He had no clue that the ground beneath his feet had already turned into thin air. At 7 a.m., there was a knock on my hotel door. 2 men in sharp black suits stood there holding a long garment bag. "Your suit, Mr. Sterling," one said with a respectful nod. I took it, unzipped the bag, and felt the fabric. It was charcoal gray, hand-stitched, and cost more than Harrison's entire car. I put it on, adjusted my silk tie, and looked in the mirror. The old dinosaur was gone. In his place was the man who had built this city. Toby woke up and rubbed his eyes. He saw me and sat bolt upright. "Whoa, Dad, you look like a movie star." "Today, Toby, we're going to show you what happens when you stand up for yourself," I said, giving him a wink. I had a smaller, nice suit for him too. If he was going to see the fall of a bully, he was going to look the part. We didn't take the rusty truck this time. A long, black SUV was waiting at the curb. The driver opened the door for us, and we slid into the leather seats. As we drove toward the office, my phone buzzed. It was a text from the head of the board of directors. "We are all in the boardroom, sir. Harrison is outside the door, demanding to know why his key card isn't working. He's throwing a fit." I smiled. "Perfect," I whispered. When the SUV pulled up to the front of Harrison Media, I saw the same security guard, Mike, standing by the revolving doors. He saw the big car and stood up straight, thinking some big investor had arrived. When I stepped out, Mike's jaw almost hit the sidewalk. "Dave," he gasped, "is that you?" "Good morning, Mike," I said, walking past it with Toby. "I'm here for the 8 a.m. meeting. And don't worry about the key card. I own the locks now." We headed for the elevator, the same one we had used to leave in tears the day before. But this time, I wasn't carrying a cardboard box. I was carrying the power to end a career. When the doors opened on the top floor, the office was quiet. Everyone was staring. They saw the janitor, David, walking in like he owned the place, followed by his son who looked like a little boss. Harrison was standing at the entrance to the boardroom, red in the face, screaming at his secretary. "What do you mean I'm locked out? I'm the CEO. Call the locksmith. Call the police. I'll have everyone fired." He was so busy yelling, he didn't even notice me walking up behind him. "Is there a problem, Harrison?" I asked. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through his screaming like a knife. Harrison spun around. He looked at my suit. He looked at my car waiting outside the window, and then he looked at my face. He laughed, but his voice was shaky. "David, what is this? A costume? Did you spend your last paycheck on a rental suit just to come back here and play pretend?" "It's not a rental, Harrison," I said calmly, "and I didn't come back to play." "Get out," Harrison shouted, stepping into my space. "I fired you yesterday. You're a nobody. You're a charity case. Security. Why is this man still in my building?" Just then, the boardroom doors opened. 12 men and women in serious suits, the board of directors, walked out. They didn't look at Harrison. They all walked straight to me and bowed their heads. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," they said in unison. The silence that followed was so heavy you could hear Harrison's heart thumping. He looked at the board, then at me, his eyes going wide with terror. Mr. Sterling? No. His name is David. He's a manager. He's a loser." The chairman of the board, an older woman named Martha, stepped forward. She looked at Harrison with pure disgust. "Harrison, you've spent the last year bragging about how you built this company, but you forgot who gave you the money. You forgot who owns the land this building sits on. This is David Sterling, the founder of this firm, your boss, and your landlord." Harrison stumbled back, hitting the wall. He looked like he was going to vomit. "But the truck, the cheap shoes, you were a charity case." "I was a test," I said, stepping closer to him so only he could hear. "I wanted to see if you were a leader or a bully. You failed, Harrison. You treated my son like trash. You treated your workers like tools. And now you're going to see what it's like to be at the bottom." I turned to Martha. "Is the paperwork ready?" "Yes, sir," she said. "The board has voted. Harrison is out, effective immediately, and the bank has officially called in his personal loans. Since his assets were used as collateral for the company, he is, as of 10 minutes ago, completely broke." The whole office was watching. The young people Harrison had bullied were standing up from their desks, watching their nightmare end in real time. Harrison grabbed my arm, his voice cracking. "David, Mr. Sterling, please. I was just stressed. I didn't mean it. We can work this out. I've got a car payment. I've got a mortgage." I looked down at his hand on my expensive suit and then back at his face. I didn't feel sorry for him. I thought about Toby crying on that park bench. I thought about all the people Harrison had crushed to feel big. "Mike," I called out to the security guard. Mike stepped forward, looking taller than he had yesterday. "Yes, sir. Mr. Harrison is no longer with the company," I said. "Please get him a cardboard box. I want him escorted out of my building immediately. And Mike, make sure he doesn't take anything that belongs to a winner." The office erupted into whispers. Harrison started to sob, as Mike took his arm. It was a pathetic sight. A man who thought he was a king was now being led away like a child. As they dragged him toward the elevator, I turned to the rest of the staff. Everyone, listen up. There are going to be some changes. We're going back to the old way of doing things. Respect, hard work, and looking out for one another. And as for the dinosaur way of working, well, it turns out the dinosaurs still know how to run the world. The staff started to clap. It wasn't just a polite clap. They were cheering. Toby was beaming, holding my hand so tight. But the tension wasn't over yet. As Harrison reached the elevator, he twisted around and yelled, "You think you've won? I'll sue you. I'll tell everyone you're a fraud. You can't do this to me." I walked over to the elevator doors just as they were closing. I looked him dead in the eye. "I'm not worried, Harrison, because while you were busy buying watches, I was busy buying the law firm you're about to call. Have a nice walk home. I hear the shoes you're wearing aren't made for the sidewalk." The door shut, but as I turned back to the room, Martha leaned in and whispered, "Sir, there's a problem. We found the offshore accounts. It's worse than we thought. He didn't just steal from us. He stole from the pension fund. The police are on their way, but Harrison has a private exit in his office we forgot about. He's not going to the lobby. He's heading for the basement garage." The chase was on. I didn't waste a second. I didn't get to be the head of a multi-million-dollar company by being slow. Harrison thought he was slick, but he was just a kid playing in a man's world. "Mike, lock the garage gates." I shouted, "Don't let a single car out." I grabbed Toby's hand, and we ran for the service stairs. My knees were stinging, but the fire in my gut was hotter. Harrison wasn't just a bully. He was a thief. He had stolen from the pension fund, the money my older workers had saved for their retirement. That was the final straw. You can insult my shoes, you can even fire me, but the moment you steal from the people who sweat for a living, you've signed your own death warrant. We burst into the basement garage just as a silver Lamborghini roared to life. It was Harrison's pride and joy. He was revving the engine, the sound echoing off the concrete walls like a scream. He saw us in his rearview mirror and floored it, heading straight for the exit. "He's going to crash the gate," Toby yelled. But Harrison didn't know one thing. I had already bought the building, and the first thing I did last night was update the security system. As the Lamborghini sped toward the ramp, a heavy steel barrier, the kind they use at military bases, slammed up from the ground. Screech. Harrison slammed on his brakes, his tires smoking as the car spun sideways, stopping just inches from the steel wall. He was trapped. I walked toward the car slowly. I didn't run. I didn't need to. He had nowhere to go. I tapped on the tinted glass window with my wedding ring. Clink, clink, clink. Harrison rolled the window down just an inch. He was shaking so hard his teeth were literally chattering. "Let me out, David. I'll give the money back. I'll give it all back." "It's too late for deals, Harrison," I said, my voice low and steady. "You didn't just take money. You took the security of people who worked 30 years for this company. People like the man I was pretending to be yesterday." Just then, the sound of sirens filled the garage. Blue and red lights began to flash against the walls. 3 police cruisers pulled in, blocking him from behind. 6 officers stepped out, their boots heavy on the pavement. Harrison looked at the police, then back at me. His face went from scared to pure, ugly desperation. "You think you're so much better than me. You lie to everyone. You played a game." "I played a game to find the truth," I told him. "And the truth is, you're a small man in a big suit." The police reached the car and pulled him out. They didn't do it gently. They pushed him against the hood of his shiny Lamborghini and clicked the handcuffs shut. The king of the office was pinned against his own toy, crying like a baby. One of the detectives walked over to me. "Mr. Sterling, we have the files you sent over. It's all here. The embezzlement, the offshore accounts, and the pension theft. He's going away for a long time." I nodded. "Make sure the pension money is frozen so we can put it back where it belongs." As they were dragging Harrison toward the police car, he looked at Toby. He tried to spit at us, but he missed. "You'll regret this. You're just an old man. You're irrelevant." Toby didn't hide behind my leg this time. He stepped forward, looked at the man in handcuffs, and said, "My dad says winners don't have to steal." The garage went quiet as the police cars drove away, the sirens fading into the distance. It was over. The bully was gone. But as I turned to leave, Martha, the board member, came running down the stairs, her face pale. "David, wait," she panted. "We just checked the main server." Harrison wasn't just stealing money. He planted a virus in the company's system before he tried to leave. He told the computer to delete every single contract and file we have at noon today. If we don't stop it, the whole company will vanish in 2 hours. I looked at my watch. 10 a.m. Harrison had one last trick up his sleeve. He wanted to burn the whole house down since he couldn't live in it. "I can't fix that, Martha," I said, feeling a cold sweat. "I'm a businessman, not a computer whiz." Suddenly, Toby tugged on my sleeve. "Dad, I know someone who can." I looked down at my son. "Who, Toby? We don't have time to hire a specialist." "No," Toby said, pointing back toward the elevator. "The people Harrison called losers. The tech guys in the basement. He never looked at them, but they're the ones who really know how the computers work. He fired their boss last week for being too old, remember?" I realized Toby was right. Harrison had been so busy looking at the top floor, he forgot the people in the basement held all the power. "Let's go," I said. "We've got a company to save." We ran back to the elevators. My heart was thumping in my chest. 10:15 a.m. We had less than 2 hours before every contract, every paycheck, and every record of the company turned into dust. Harrison was behind bars, but his ghost was still in the machines, trying to kill the business I spent my life building. We didn't go to the fancy top floor this time. We went all the way down to the basement, the dungeon, as Harrison used to call it. This was where the IT guys worked. It was dark, smelled like old coffee, and was filled with the hum of big computer servers. When the doors opened, the three guys down there looked up in shock. They were wearing hoodies and old t-shirts. They looked like the kind of people Harrison would never even speak to. "Who are you?" one of them asked, standing up. "This area is off limits." "I'm David Sterling," I said, "and I'm the owner of this company. But right now, that doesn't matter." Harrison planted a kill switch virus. In less than 2 hours, everything we've ever worked for is going to be deleted. "Can you stop it?" The three guys looked at each other. The youngest one, a guy with messy hair named Sam, cracked his knuckles. Harrison fired our boss, Mr. Henderson, because he was 60 and used reading glasses. Henderson was the only one who knew the deep code. "We can try," but Harrison locked us out of the main admin wall. "What do you need to get back in?" I asked. "A master override key," Sam said, "but only the CEO has it, and it's a physical USB drive. Harrison probably has it on him." My stomach dropped. Harrison was already in a police van on his way to the station. If that key was in his pocket, we were finished. I grabbed my phone and called the detective. "Detective, it's Sterling. Does Harrison have a black USB drive on him? We needed to stop a virus." "Hang on," the detective said. I heard rustling. "No, nothing here. He's got a phone, a wallet, and a gold lighter. That's it." I looked at the IT guys. "He doesn't have it." Toby, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Dad, remember yesterday? When he dropped the box on your desk? He was fidgeting with something in his pocket. Then, right before he laughed and told us to leave, he reached under his own desk for a second." I looked at Toby. "You saw that?" "Yeah," Toby said. "He looked like he was hiding a piece of gum, but maybe it was the key." "Back to the top floor." "Now," I shouted. We scrambled back into the elevator. 11 a.m. 1 hour left. We burst into Harrison's old office. It was a mess. Half-empty glasses of expensive scotch, gold pens scattered everywhere. I dove onto the massive mahogany desk. My knees hit the floor hard, but I didn't care. I felt around the smooth wood. Nothing. "I don't see it, Toby." "Check the vent, Dad." "Behind the leg." I reached further back, my fingers brushing against something cold and small. I pulled. It was a tiny black drive taped to the inside of the desk leg. "Got it." We sprinted back to the basement. I handed the drive to Sam. He plugged it in, and his fingers started flying across the keyboard. Lines of green code started scrolling down the screen like a waterfall. 11:30 a.m. "I'm in," Sam shouted. "But the virus is moving fast. It's eating the files as we speak. I need to redirect the data to a backup server, but we don't have enough space." "Use my personal cloud," I yelled. "I have a private server for Sterling Holdings." Here's the access code. I punched in a long string of numbers I had memorized years ago. Connecting. Sam muttered. Data transfer starting. 10%. 20%. The clock on the wall seemed to be ticking louder and louder. 11:45 a.m. It's too slow, Sam said, sweat dripping off his forehead. The virus is catching up to the transfer. If it hits the bridge before we finish, it'll travel up the line and kill your personal server too, Mr. Sterling. You'll lose everything you own. Not just this company, your whole estate, your bank accounts, everything. The other IT guys looked at me, terrified. Sir, we should cut the line. It's too risky. You'll be broke. I looked at the screen. I looked at Toby. Then I looked at the names of the employees on the list, the people whose pensions were at stake. Keep it running, I said firmly. But sir, I started with nothing but an old truck and a dream, I said. If I have to go back to that to save these people, then that's what we're going to do. Don't stop the transfer. 11:55 a.m. 80%, 85%. The screen started flashing red. Warning. Virus detected in bridge. It's at the door. Sam yelled. 90%, 95%. 11:59 a.m. The room went silent. All we could hear was the hum of the cooling fans. Sam's finger hovered over the enter key. 99%. The clock hit 12 o'clock. The screens all went black. Every single monitor in the room just died. Toby grabbed my hand. I held my breath. I thought about my house, my life's work, and my future. It was all gone. I was just a 55-year-old man with a suit and a son. Did we lose? Toby whispered. Sam was staring at his black screen. He hit a button, then another. Suddenly, a tiny green box appeared in the center of the darkness. Transfer complete. Virus quarantined and deleted. The room erupted. The IT guys were jumping up and down, hugging each other. Martha burst into the room, crying. The files are back. The payroll is safe. We did it. I slumped into a chair, my legs finally giving out. I was exhausted, but for the first time in years, I felt alive. You did good, Sam, I said, shaking his hand. As of right now, you're the new head of technology. And go find Mr. Henderson. Tell him I want him back as a senior consultant. I'll pay him double. Sam beamed. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. I walked out of the basement with Toby. We headed to the front lobby. The whole staff was there, hundreds of people. They had heard what happened. They knew I had risked my entire fortune to save their jobs. As I walked through the doors, the cheering started. It was so loud the windows rattled. These weren't just workers anymore. They were a family. But there was one more thing I had to do. I had to see the look on Harrison's face one last time. I didn't head back to the top floor to sit in a big leather chair. Instead, I grabbed my keys and took Toby to the county jail. I wanted him to see the end of the story. I wanted him to see that no matter how much money a man has, if he builds his house on lies and hate, it will always fall down. We sat behind a thick glass in the visiting room. A few minutes later, the door opened, and a guard led Harrison in. He wasn't wearing his $5,000 suit anymore. He was wearing a bright orange jumpsuit that was 2 sizes too big. His hair was a mess, and his face was red from crying. When he saw me sitting there in my custom suit, looking calm and strong, he lunged at the glass, screaming, You destroyed me. You cheated. I should have killed that company when I had the chance." I just picked up the phone and waited for him to do the same. After a minute of him yelling like a madman, he finally grabbed his phone, breathing hard. "Why, David?" he hissed. "Why did you play the poor old man? Why didn't you just tell me who you were?" "Because," I said, "I wanted to see who you were. Money doesn't change people, Harrison. It just unmasks them. I gave you power, and you used it to hurt people who couldn't fight back. You call me a charity case. You call my son a loser. But look at us now." I leaned in closer to the glass. The virus failed. The company is safe. The pension fund is back in the hands of the workers. And the board of directors just signed the papers to turn your old office into a training center for dinosaurs, like me, people you thought were too old to matter. Harrison's face crumbled. He realized then that everything he had worked for, the car, the fame, the ego, was gone forever. He had nothing left but a small cell and a long sentence. "You think you won," Harrison whispered, one last bit of hate in his eyes. You're still just an old man who's going to be forgotten. Maybe, I said with a smile. But my son will remember today. He'll remember that his dad stood up to a bully. And that is a legacy you will never understand. I hung up the phone. I didn't look back as the guard dragged him away. I walked out of that jail and into the fresh air. Toby was waiting for me by the SUV, but I waved the driver away. Go on home, Arthur, I told the driver. I'll get back on my own. I led Toby around the corner to where I had parked my old, rusty truck. We climbed in, and the engine roared to life with that familiar, steady hum. Harrison was right about one thing. It was a heap of junk, but it was my heap of junk, and it had more heart than anything he ever owned. We drove back to the office one last time. I walked in, not as the boss, but as David. I told the staff that I was officially retiring for real this time. I put Sam and Martha in charge, and I told them that if they ever treated a worker with anything less than total respect, I'd be back to take the keys again. As Toby and I walked out of the building for the final time, the sun was setting, turning the glass tower into a pillar of gold. I felt lighter than I had in years. I had saved the company, I had saved the people, and most importantly, I had shown my son what it means to be a real winner. Hey, Dad, Toby asked as we pulled out of the parking lot. Yes, son. Can we go get some of those cheap shoes you like? The ones that cost less than Harrison's lunch. I laughed so hard my sides ached. You bet, Toby. And then we're going fishing. Harrison thought he was a king, but he was just a footnote. We were the ones with the real treasure. I hope this story reminded you that your value doesn't come from your paycheck or the brand of your shoes. It comes from your heart and how you treat the people around you. If you enjoyed seeing the underdog win, please hit that like button, leave a comment telling me your favorite part, and subscribe for more stories of justice. Always remember, never look down on someone unless you're helping them up, because you never know when a lion is sitting right next to you.